There's never going to come a time where things are just magically abstracted away from you. We hear a lot, this tool is going to make your life easier, or this tool is going to take what you've been doing and kind of throw it out the window. And I feel like the more that we hear that, the more crazy it sounds in a sense. So instead of thinking about, okay, this is a tool or this is a vendor or whatever that's going to make your life easier or abstract things away, instead, I want you to think about it in a way that a vendor or a tool that gives you what you need to do what you actually need to do, right? Give you an example. We're thinking a lot about, are we running on Kubernetes? Are we running on Azure Container Apps? Are we running on bare metal? Are we running in AWS ECS? Are we running in EKS? Where are we running? And a lot of the time, this kind of clouds our judgment in terms of the overall architecture. All of those things, like where it's running, it's got to be running somewhere. This should be table stakes, right? It's running somewhere. But should it really matter where it's running? Or rather, because it does matter, but should you be spending 40, 50, 60% of your time thinking about where it's running and then managing where it's running? In my opinion, I don't think so. I think we really have to think about things at the, I guess you can call it the SDLC level, right? Where we're thinking about, okay, this is the plan, we're having the conversations, to this is what the architecture looks like, to we're writing the code, to we're deploying. That's the important piece. Getting any product out into the wild, getting anything deployed, getting any code written. These are the things that make the difference. Yeah, it's running on Kubernetes, and yeah, we can do this and that on Kubernetes or on ECS or whatever, but people aren't paying for that, right? Like if let's say you're looking for a new tool, maybe it's like a note taker or a new application on your phone or something like that. You're not making the decision to buy that app or to buy that tool or whatever based on, oh, look at their underlying infrastructure or their underlying platform. No, you're buying it based on the features or based on, oh, it does this thing and I need to be able to do this thing, so that's why I'm going to buy it. My point is that very rarely are you making any decisions based on that underlying platform and infrastructure. And I think that that's the way that we should all be thinking about software right now. So aside from we shouldn't care if it's running, we should just know, hey, there's a cluster here. We want to be able to run our application on this cluster, on this VM or whatever. That's really the extent that we should care about it. Next is the whole idea of removing YAML. Okay, so I don't know about you, but it could get pretty cumbersome. If anybody watching this has ever written an RBAC configuration via YAML, it's pretty easy for the first role and the first role binding, but then before you know it, you're like, oh, I need role bindings for every user, and oh, for every team, and oh, for this person and that person. It's a pain. We really shouldn't be managing things with a configuration language in general anymore. I could even go as far as saying that we shouldn't really even care about infrastructure as code, but I guess perhaps that's another discussion, another topic, because if our clusters are ephemeral, who cares, right? The third piece is we want to be able to manage dev staging production or dev UAT production or dev staging QA production, whatever it is, in an easy fashion. So in the world of Kubernetes, we have something called customize with a K. What does that do? It allows us to configure a relay. It allows us to say, okay, on the base or on the relay, we have the dev environment, staging, production, and then within there, we put values, kind of like a values.yaml in Helm charts. But that's cumbersome because now you still got to manage a bunch of YAML, right? And that, again, we shouldn't have to be doing, like, that shouldn't be where our thought process is. I want to be thinking about writing code because that's what I like to do. I want to be thinking about the overall architecture. I want to be thinking about what this whole thing looks like when I deploy it and actually bringing value. For example, if you think about the SRE handbook, if you read that years ago from Google, the whole idea of an SRE back then, and even still now, but the idea was I want to remove all of the fires that I get hit with every day and instead just automate all of them and find a fix for all of them. We shouldn't be thinking about that low-hanging fruit, and YAML is certainly a lot of low-hanging fruit. And then two more pieces here that I want to talk about. Resource optimization. We have a lot of tools for resource and cost optimization, but honestly, sometimes you just want to have what looks like a Google Calendar almost, and you want to be able to say, okay, this block, nodes are at 0, pods are at 0. This block, nodes are at 0, pods are at 0. And you just want to be able to just have an easy UI to pick and choose blocks when those nodes are going to go down. Think about it from like a demo environment perspective or a dev environment. Do dev environments have to run on the weekends? Well, depending if you're working on the weekends, but let's say you're not working on the weekends. No, right? So we just want to be able to turn those things off in an automated fashion. And then last but certainly not least is the ability to set a config. So pretty much like a key value pair, okay? So you know how like in a Kubernetes manifest, you'll have, under spec, it'll say image, this image, replica, this replica, or you're setting an annotation for your service mesh sidecar or whatever the case may be. Again, instead of having to do that via YAML, you should just be able to set a configuration fairly easily via a CLI or a UI or, just making a simple API call. So these are just a couple of things that I believe will make life a little bit easier. And well, I shouldn't use the word easy because I kind of called out in the beginning of the video. This is going to make your life a little bit more fun in the sense of you're thinking about things from a value perspective versus, this low-hanging fruit.